Back in 2010, when Fiverr first launched, the whole concept felt really cool. A global marketplace where people offered anything for $5, from logo design to full music productions. And if you were around the audio world back then, you remember this clearly. Mixing and mastering gigs for $5 or $10. Even as a beginner, you knew something didn't add up. Because, let's be honest, no one can build a sustainable career mixing entire songs for the price of a sandwich. And that was the first big problem with Fiverr. The prices were insanely low. But there was something else, a problem that still exists today. Or, well, in any other marketplace for that matter. Your gig appears right next to hundreds of other offering the exact same thing. No matter your experience, your gear, your workflow, you're just one tile in an infinite scroll. And of course, that comes with a few disadvantages. Many buyers arrive without a clear idea of what separates one service from another, so their decision process can feel sometimes a bit random. And as a creator, you're still competing for attention in a long list of thumbnails where everyone is trying to stand out. It's not that the competition is based purely on price or that engineers aren't skilled. It's simply that the marketplace format makes it harder for the nuance and individuality behind each engineer to shine at first glance. And this is exactly why I think it becomes so important to show as much as you can about yourself inside your profile. Because if the platform itself can't highlight the nuances, then you have to. But we'll get into that later. Now, with all that in mind, why on earth did I decide to open a Fiverr profile now? Let's take a quick look at how things actually look inside Fiverr today. Okay, so let's go to Fiverr and type in mixing and mastering. And the moment you hit search, you're greeted with the first reality check, the number of results. And here's the thing, it's not small at all. We have a whopping 5,700 plus results. Now, just for fun, let's compare that with something way more universal, like, for example, I don't know, website development. Here we've got 61,000 plus results, which is significantly higher than audio. And of course, that makes sense. There's simply more global demand for web development than for mixing and mastering. Still, even if audio is a smaller category, it's far from empty. We're talking about thousands of engineers, producers, and creators offering services similar to yours. In other words, it's still a crowded space. Now I'm really curious. When you see this amount of results, what's your first reaction? Would you feel overwhelmed as a client or maybe motivated as an engineer? Let me know in the comments because I'd love to hear how you see it. But here's an interesting question. How many of these profiles are actually relevant? How many are active? How many are dead profiles that haven't delivered a gig in years? Or incomplete profiles with no description, no audio examples, no video, nothing? The number of real active competitive engineers is definitely smaller, but I would say still big enough to matter. Even if many profiles aren't active or were built, the core issue remains. In a marketplace, you're still standing right next to thousands other creators. And I guess that this is also kind of overwhelming if we see it from the client's perspective. Imagine what this feels like. You want your song mixed, you open Fiverr, and suddenly you're scrolling through endless thumbnails, all promising the best mix, the best analog chain, the best turnaround time, and so on. How do you even begin to make a decision with so many options on the table? Well, at this point, it's no secret that one of the deciding factors is the amount of positive reviews you have. Let's have a look here at the top profiles and see how many stars they've got. For example, here we got one with 1K plus results at 4.9. Here also 1K plus, 600, 500, 1K plus, 1K plus. Well, again, 1K plus. Okay, we have here one with 3, but again, 4.4, which doesn't speak too good about it. Okay, here we have again 1K plus, 1K plus, 1K plus, 1K plus. Now, reviews are the real currency on Fiverr. If someone has hundreds or thousands of reviews, they're automatically seen as more trustworthy. And that leads to a very real question for anyone starting out. How many reviews do you actually need to become relevant? Do you need like 10, 50, 200? What I've seen over and over again from people who actually made Fiverr work for them, in the beginning, you have to bring your first clients. So the story many creators share is this. They started by inviting a few clients they already knew, maybe a friend's band, maybe someone they worked with before, maybe an artist who had been meaning to get a mix done. The idea is not to cheat the system. It's simply to get the ball rolling, to create some movement in your profile so you don't look like an empty shop on opening day. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. No one wants to walk into a restaurant with no customers on a Friday night, especially when the restaurant next door is completely full. Now, this brings us to the next important question. How much work does it actually take to build a Fiverr profile that can compete? Because I think when you're starting with 0 reviews, one of the most important things you can do is present a complete, well crafted profile. And to show you exactly what I mean, I'm going to use my own profile as an example. So coming back to Fiverr, here is my profile. So the first thing you got to do is, come up with a really nice title that somehow make what you offer a little bit different from other ones. I'm not quite sure if my title here is, that creative, but well, I'm just trying out. This is my first profile ever, and so this is a title that I came up with. Now, the first really important thing that we see is the video. Now, to craft a really good video, it takes a lot of time and effort. For example, for me, English is not my first language, so I had to script everything that I wanted to say. And, that takes time to come up with the right words that you want to say. Another important thing is that you only have 75 seconds, I think. So you can't just talk and talk and talk all the time you want, right? So for me, it was about 1 day of work to be able to record and edit and color grade that video. Now, the other thing that we have to take into consideration are these 3 images, which have audio, right? They are examples of things that I've already mixed. And so I already had those pictures, but if you are starting out, you have to also take into consideration to have good images. I think they are really important. Now, we come to the part where we have to write something about what we are offering. The first idea I had was to offer special prices for my first 10 clients to see if I can make people book the service even without me having a ton of reviews. So let's see if this strategy works. But yeah, that's another thing. We have to write a text that is compelling, that people who might find you here on Fiverr, that they feel attracted to your profile and your service, right? And so, what I did here was to talk a little bit about emotion and how important it is to highlight that emotion through the shape of sound. So, next we have here a personal description, which again, you have to write it, you have to come up with something that you want to say. And next to it, we have the portfolio, which, if we go inside it, you can see there are a couple of tracks that I've worked on, but of course, you also have to have something in your portfolio to begin with, and you have to write descriptions. You have to have the photos. In my case, they work because they are already released music. So I just took the cover art for each one of them. And finally, we've got the packages that you're offering, which again, to build this takes a little bit of work because you have to know what services are you offering, what would be the price, what are the extras, etc., etc. And I forgot here about the FAQ section, which I think it might change. But again, in my humble opinion, building a profile in Fiverr that can compete with the other profiles out there, it just takes time. It certainly took me a lot of tests and iterations, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to get any orders. And well, since we're talking about getting orders, if any of you watching this are currently working on a track that need a mix or master, this might be actually the best moment to do it, because my first 10 clients on Fiverr are getting a special entry price, part of the strategy I mentioned earlier. After that, prices will adjust to the normal rate. Not making a big announcement out of it, but if you've been thinking about working together or you're curious to try my sound on your music, this is probably the most affordable window there will be. So I'm going to leave the link to my Fiverr profile in the description below. Now, with all of this in mind, let me finally share the real reasons why I decided to open a profile after all this time. First of all, I had to confront something I'd been carrying for years, my own prejudice toward the platform. I had convinced myself that Fiverr didn't work, that it was all low budget clients and unrealistic expectations. And honestly, repeating that to myself became a comfortable excuse to never try. So part of this decision was simply wanting to challenge that belief. Instead of assuming Fiverr wouldn't work for me, I wanted to experiment and see for myself. No more theories, just real experience. Another important factor is the reality of our industry today. Getting new clients is not always easy. Even if you have a portfolio, a studio, analog gear, a website, it still requires effort, visibility, and a bit of luck. So, having one more channel, one more door where artists can find you can only help. It's not replacing anything, it's simply adding an extra path for opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, that was also a huge part of my decision. The idea that I might connect with artists I would have never reached out otherwise. Different countries, different genres, different stories. That's all exciting to me. The possibility of discovering new music, new collaborations, new creative energies, that alone made it worth considering. But probably the most important piece is expectations. I'm approaching this as a long term experiment, not a quick shortcut. I don't expect to open a profile today and wake up tomorrow with 40 orders. Although, well, to be honest, that would be great. But this is something that takes consistency and patience, and I'm totally fine with that. So, yes, after years of doubting the platform, I finally decided to give it a real try. not based on assumptions, not based on what Fiverr used to be in 2010, but based on what it is today and on what I can learn from the process. Now, let me know your thoughts. Do you think Fiverr is still worth today? Would you ever considering offering your services there? Or are you offering your services right now? Or if you are an artist, have you ever worked with an audio engineer on Fiverr? Share your thoughts in the comments. All right, I hope you liked the video and see you in the next one. Bye bye.